Hello everyone, this is Faith at Faith and Books. How are you doing? I am doing a bookshelf tour of that empty shelf up there. This is a continuation. I did the one above it last time, and I'm trying to resume these as I continue to try to organize my books. I'm very slow at this, and I struggle with organization. I'm very ADD, and this is where a real weak point for me. Anyway, I'm just going to show you the books that we had up on the shelves, on that shelf, and I'll start with these are my husband's books. Free to Choose by Milton Friedman. My husband was an econ major, and he was kind of a libertarian for a while. I don't think he is any longer, but he really liked Milton Friedman. So there you go, Capitalism and Freedom, and The Tyranny of the Status Quo by Milton Friedman. You know, is he ever going to read these again? Probably not, but he's sort of attached to them. And then he also has, this is really libertarian, The Economics of Justice by Richard Posner. He was a big time judge that was very libertarian. So got that, and then we thought it would be funny to put next to it Economic Justice for All, Pastoral Letter on Catholic Social Teaching and the U.S. Economy, which is not libertarian. So we put those together. And then the last one, I think that's on economics. No, there's more. Is just this. I got this for homeschooling, A Student's Guide to Economics. Just a brief intro, but this is by a very conservative group, the ISI books. Yeah, but they're kind of concise and explain things clearly. Then I'm kind of groovy about economics, so I've got well, let's see, I think next in the row was The Worldly Philosophers by Robert Heilbronner, and this is an old text of my husband's. I think we have a newer edition of this though, but this is a good, it's just each chapter is a summarization of a particular very influential economist. So there's David Ricardo, Utopian Socialist, Karl Marx, John Maynard Keynes. So yeah, this is a nice resource to have if you want to refamiliarize or you need an intro to economic thought. And then of course this is the granddaddy of them all, The Wealth of Nations, Adam Smith. And then I'm not a libertarian, and I'm not an economist either. My husband studied it, I didn't. But I'm more of a localist. I'm kind of a rebel. So I have E.F. Schumacher's A Guide for the Perplexed, which I've never read, and I want to read his Small is Beautiful. Yeah, he was pretty radical, but not in a Marxist way, but just in a more like if you're familiar with the Christian magazine Plow, I think that sort of very Christian, communal, focusing on the common good and that sort of thing, solidarity and subsidiarity and that sort of thing. So that's a book by him, and I want to get Small is Beautiful, but I read Small is Still Beautiful by Joseph Pierce, who's a favorite Catholic author of mine, and this is really interesting about how local is better. Local economies are better. This transnational stuff, not so good. And then let's see, and then those were the economics books. Then we went into travel. So we have Sailing Alone Around the World by Captain Joshua Slocum. My husband read this book. This is kind of a classic. Yeah, I'd actually like to read that one day. I haven't gotten to it. Walk in the Woods by Bill Bryson. I started to read this and didn't finish it, and now I'm watching somebody on Instagram who was walking, this lovely young woman who's walking through the Appalachian Trail. So I kind of want to read that too. Then, let's see, Washington and Old Dominion Railroad. This became the Northern Virginia bike path now. It's a park where people bike and jog and walk. And this is the history, a lot of local history. Oh yeah, here's a map of the United States Military Railroad Station, Alexandria, 1865. Can you see that? So this has a lot of information about a local landmark or park that we use. This is National Parks and Seashores of the East. And then, is that all the American? Yeah. So then the rest is foreign. So this is Avila. We got this in Avila. We stayed in Avila, Spain for a week. It was just amazing. The walls, they have the medieval walls. It's a UNESCO site, World Heritage Site. Just an amazing place. You feel like you're stepping back in the Middle Ages. Really, really wonderful. This is when we went to Florence. When we were first married, our first anniversary, we went to Italy. And we saw the Pitti Palace. And then here is the Basilica of St. Mark. And that was when we were in Venice. It was really cold and rainy and raw. And our little room wasn't heated and there was no hot water. We were really miserable in Venice. So, but the Basilica is gorgeous. Then we have our travel guide to Florence. City tours. I haven't looked at these things in so long. There's brochures from our trip. We loved Florence, of course. Who wouldn't? And then here is Rome. We went to Rome. I loved Rome. My husband it felt too much like a big city to him. Although, with lots of interesting sights. But he liked Florence and the smaller places better. I guess he didn't expect it to be modern. And then this is a book that someone gave me, the Making of Medieval Spain. I don't know. I'm just not ready to get rid of it yet, I guess. So those are the travel books. How much time have I spent? I don't know how interesting this particular shelf is. This might get more interesting. This is mostly books I have some sort of sentimental attachment to, or there's a couple here that I just want to read. The first one is The Last Hurrah by Edwin O'Connor. This is about, I think I read this in college in a politics and film. There's a movie starring Spencer Tracy, but it's about sort of the demise of the Irish machine. I think it's sort of, it's Boston. And it sort of is based on the debates with Kennedy and Nixon and how Kennedy could use television more to his advantage. So the old political machine was passing away and the new way of doing things is coming on. Very interesting book, well written. The next one is The Life of Pi. I think it's the type of book you either love or hate. I just loved it. I really, really loved it. And I'm just not ready to unhaul it. This book, I started to read Sweet Française by Irene Nemirovsky. This made a big splash when they published it. She wrote it during the occupation of France, and then she was carted off to the concentration camp. And then they found the manuscript, so they published it much later. And I started to read it, and I didn't get very far. I think I just wasn't in the mood, and I was going to come back to it, and I still want to read it. I just haven't gotten to it yet. And then I think I've showed this once before, Helen Keller's Story of My Life. Even though I don't particularly like this edition, this large print, I do love the story of Helen Keller, and I've read this several times, and so I don't want to unhaul that. And then this is Notes from the Shore by Jennifer Ackerman. And on our honeymoon, we went several places on our honeymoon. And one of the places we went was to, oh my gosh, the name just flew out of my head. But we went to the Henlope Seashore Park. What's it called? Cape Henlope. And yeah, here we go. Which is in Delaware. And it's a beautiful park. And I think I picked up this book there somehow, or I found this book very soon thereafter. And it's a naturalist studying the area. It's very readable. It should be more popular than it is. I've actually read it a couple of times. So yeah, this is a good book, so I don't want to get rid of that. This is a book that someone gave me, and I just want to read it. It's M.F.K. Fisher. I've heard about her, Two Towns in Provence. And one day I'll read this. I really would like to read this because I've heard about her a lot, and I've just never gotten around to reading anything by her. And I think I've shown these two really recently. This is Alec Guinness, Blessings in Disguise, and Alec Guinness, Commonplace Book. And I'm just going to keep these because, you know, like I said in another video, I had a crush on Alec Guinness. And then I recently got this book from Thrift Books. I really like this edition, In This House of Breed, because Kelly at Books I'm Not Reading, I might be doing a buddy read with her of this book sometime in the winter, maybe 2024. I'm thinking February, but I don't know. That we haven't really discussed it, but we did exchange comments where we mentioned it. But that made me want to get it because I read it a long time ago and I want to reread it, and I realized I didn't have a copy. So yeah, so I'm keeping that one. Then a couple more books that I just have attachments to. For some reason I just really, oh, this is a recent read by Rumer Godden. So I'm putting this with my In This House of Breed. They're both Rumer Godden. I read this for Sean Standfast's Faded Pages book club, just in February or March, I can't remember, maybe March. Oh, it was wonderful. I have a review video about it. So I'm keeping that because I do like Rumer Godden. And so I want to read more books by her. Oh, why is this here? The bookmark in here, I don't know why. This is the summer book by Tove Hansen. And I just read this, was it last summer or the summer before? But I loved it. Really evocative book. Very nostalgic. So I don't want to get rid of that. And then 50 Acres and a Poodle by Jean Marie Laskus. I used to read her column back when we got the Washington Post. I used to read her column every weekend, and I loved her. And this is a great book about how she, well, it says a story of love, livestock, and finding myself on a farm. So a really fun book. I really enjoyed this one. Then, well, no, we have a couple more before we get into philosophy. This, I think I showed this again too. I want to reread this book, The Stranger in the Woods, The Extraordinary Story of the Last True Hermit. There's thunder. We're having a thunderstorm. By Michael Finkel. So I'm not ready to get rid of that one yet. And then this is an old book that I read back in law school, The Last of the Just by Andrei Schwarzbart. And it is a Holocaust story. And I would like to reread it. I remember finding it incredibly moving and powerful and profound. Really, I think it's sort of an, I don't know. I don't think it's as people are as familiar with it as other Holocaust books, but it's really excellent. And then I have a few, well, no, I don't. Oh, yeah, they're up there. Okay. I'm not making sense. And then I have a couple books by Tracy Kidder. I went through a Tracy Kidder phase among school children, where he just reports on what life is like, where I think they were fourth graders in a school up in New England. A really charming book. And then Strength and What Remains. This is the story of Deogratius, I think was his name, in Burundi. You know, the Rwandan Holocaust also happened in the neighboring country, Burundi. And this is a story of, he was in medical school and he survived just by a freak accident. He managed to hide when they came in and killed everybody. And it's how he got out. My dog is whining. Can you hear him? Anyway, he got out, and it's his story of how he got out and what happened afterwards. And it's a really good book. And I also read Tracy Kidder's story about, biography about Dr. Paul Farmer, who died just a couple of years ago. And that book was Mountains Beyond Mountains. And I don't know where that is. I might have gotten that from the library or something. I'm not sure how I read that book. Anyway, I do like Tracy Kidder. I haven't read him though in years, so I don't know if he's still writing things. I don't know. I lost track of him. And then I have some philosophy books. My dog is howling, I'm sorry. This is I and Thou by Martin Buber. This is lovely. This is a Jewish philosopher sort of trying to answer the problem of alienation in response to the rise of existentialism. So it's quite beautiful. Then I have two books by Mortimer Adler. The first one is How to Read a Book. I've only read chunks of it. And then this one, I just saw it. I think I bought it used at a used bookstore or something because I didn't even know that he had a follow-up to it. So I kind of have a set there. So I guess I should get around to reading it. Oh, I'm sorry about my dog. And then I also got this at a used bookstore. Roger Scruton, The Philosopher on Dover Beach. I think he's quite a conservative philosopher. I think he's passed away, but fairly recent. And I think mostly he was about art. And maybe other things. Yeah, I think he was about aesthetics. Anyway, I just picked that up because I'd heard his name and it was very inexpensive at a used bookstore. And then I have Blaise Pascal's Pensées, which I tried to read and couldn't make head or tail of it. It's just a bunch of scribblings that he wrote down. So I don't know. I don't understand how people get so much out of this. People do, though. They love this book. And it really is a real source of inspiration for them. And I don't understand it. Maybe it's this translation and the way Penguin Classics puts it together. I do think Penguin Classics is probably heresy. Haha, ironic. I don't think they do religious stuff well. I just, somehow it's drier when they do it. Whereas other publishers seem to have more, I don't know, get more of the spirit. Maybe it's who they pick or the translations that they pick. But I do find that Penguin sometimes doesn't really deliver when it comes to things of a religious nature. So, I don't know. I'm keeping it, but I don't know. Maybe I want to find another way because he does inspire a lot of people. And so I would like to know more about him, frankly. And then this is also a Jewish rabbi, philosopher, God in Search of Man, A Philosophy of Judaism by Abraham Joshua Heschel. So that is the philosophy section, and that is the whole shelf. And I have no idea if this was interesting. And I probably won't be doing another shelf tour for a while, unfortunately. I mean, I wish I was because I really want to get all these books organized, but it just seems to always be a work in progress for me. I just can't seem to get my act together. All right, well, it's long enough, so I will talk to you later. Happy reading.